Right, bring it to here, the lad with the silver hat, right? This is, as I told you, this is me professor cap.
We talk about it, sing about it, and definitely complain about it. The weather. But have we come to the point where we can control the weather?
When you manipulate the weather, you're trying to control it. Well, when they spray the atmosphere, right, they produce more rain. That's what cloud seeding is originally all about. Cloud seeding is originally for prolonging the rains, prolonging monsoons, i.e. the Popeye Project.
As the Vietnam War reached a crossroads, the U.S. Army had important decisions to make if they wanted to tip the scale back to their side. All options were on the table, both conventional and unconventional. And among the most unusual plots was Operation Popeye, launched in an attempt to weaken the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the Viet Cong's most vital mechanism and supply flow tool. To accomplish this, the U.S. would turn the weather into a weapon of war. Operation Popeye utilized cloud seeding technology, a type of weather modification that artificially creates rain or snow. With it, the U.S. military extended at least 5 monsoon seasons, causing detrimental effects to the unknowing Vietnamese citizens and soldiers. The mission spanned 5 years. Despite multiple hearings in Congress, military officers, and even President Nixon himself, denied it existing at all.
If you can control the weather, well, you can send a couple of hurricanes and tornadoes in the top of certain places around the world you might have a disagreement with.
The Vietnam War was, for many reasons, unlike any other war American soldiers had ever seen. Instead of a standard campaign frontline, where the American Army had more than enough experience, the Vietnam War's battles were fought in the dense South Vietnam jungle. This was an isolated region filled with mountains, animals, and endless greenery. The Viet Cong's most significant advantage over the U.S. in this region was the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a logistics network made up of dirt pads and hand-dug tunnels. It had secret bunkers, barracks, and even a few hospitals. All were cleverly hidden from American aircraft looking for them in reconnaissance missions. With its extensive web of roads and handmade paths, the trail helped the Viet Cong carry massive amounts of manpower, weapons, food, and other war material from one side of the country to the other. At over 1,000 miles in length, the trail ran from North to South Vietnam and extended through the kingdoms of Laos and Cambodia. The U.S. military attempted to destroy the trail with never-ending bombing campaigns. More bombs were dropped on Laos than in Germany and Japan combined in World War II. But none of the tactics were entirely effective. Even Agent Orange wasn't up to the task. The trail network was so vast and complex that if one of the paths were closed, all Viet Cong soldiers had to do was find a secondary way back to their base. But there was one thing that significantly slowed the supply flow on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Rain turned the trails into muddy messes, rendering them too difficult to supply vehicles to maneuver. Vietnam is known for having one of the world's longest monsoon seasons, usually running from April to October. June, July, and August are the months with the heaviest rain. And so the Department of Defense decided to attempt to recreate this process. Their goal was to try to control the weather and extend the monsoon season for as long as they could. To achieve this, they resorted to cloud seeding. This process is thought to have originated in 1946 by Vincent Schaefer, a chemist employed by General Electric. Cloud seeding is a method for artificially producing rain or snow. It requires modifying a cloud's chemical structure to boost the chances of precipitation with the added substance of silver iodide, which works as a condensation agent. There are 2 ways to disperse cloud seeding agents, either using large cannons to shoot the particles into the sky, or using airplanes to drop the particles from above. Throughout the planning period, The program went by several names to maintain its secrecy. Operation Popeye ended up being its official name.
Let's talk about cloud seeding. It's described as the enhancement of natural precipitation. To explain how cloud seeding works, we need to first talk about clouds.
Clouds are a bunch of water droplets or ice crystals floating in the sky. The water droplets are too small to fall as precipitation, but they are large enough to form the clouds we see. In most parts of the world, these droplets are supercooled, meaning they're below freezing, but they remain liquid. Now, sometimes these droplets are just milling around, pushing past each other and not sticking together, kind of like a missed connection. Other times, these droplets bump into each other, like commuters on a train during a busy rush hour. The water vapors collide and stick to particles floating in the air. It could be dust, smoke particles, or even meteoric debris. Those are known as condensation nuclei.
So cloud seeding can produce what we want more or less of, more snow, more rain, or smaller hail pellets. This is done by introducing a seeding agent through pyrotechnic flares attached to an aircraft. Think Roman candles with a mission. A mission to deliver those condensation nuclei that encourage more collisions and group huddles by ice crystals inside the cloud. Common seeding agents used are dry ice, the solid form of carbon dioxide, silver iodide, or...
According to JSTOR, silver iodide is toxic and must be handled with care.
In the case of silver iodide, its structure is very similar to ice, hexagonal, which is why experts think ice wants to bond to it.
That's nice to know, and they're dropping it out of the sky, out of the back of airplanes.
When silver iodide is used in a cloud, water droplets begin to give up water vapor and shrink. At the same time, the ice crystals already present in the cloud collect this moisture and grow. As ice crystals bang into other ice crystals, they become larger and heavier until they fall from the cloud. So why would we even want to do this? Who does it benefit?
In the wintertime, increase in snowfall is a very significant value add to organizations like hydropower companies.
Idaho Power Company, for example, is interested in having more snowfall during the winter because this produces more runoff in the springtime for hydroelectricity. Wineries, such as ones in Mendoza, Argentina, have also used cloud seeding to protect their vineyards from damage through hail suppression.
It's as simple as if you got £1 million and your grapes need a sup of water, well, we can fly over and geoengineer the atmosphere and make it rain within an hour.
And lastly, insurance companies like ones in Alberta fund cloud seeding projects in order to lessen damage claims they receive. So how much does it cost? Well, the cost can vary. Hail is the most expensive, rain projects less expensive. Running $200,000 to $1 million a year, and that might produce an extra 1.5 to 4.5 meters of snow in the mountains, or an extra 50 to 125 millimeters of rain in the summer.
And you compare that to what is in the market price for water, or comparable technologies in creating more surface and groundwater, that is desalinization, groundwater recharge, some of these, or even building dams and infrastructure, we're a fraction of that cost.
So now that we know how it works, here are some myths busted. Why don't they cloud seed to extinguish forest fires? Because you can't create rain with cloud seeding. You can only enhance clouds that are already present. Can cloud seeding resolve droughts? Not really, because all precipitation requires clouds. If it's already dry, there won't be enough moisture to rise in the air. No clouds, no extra moisture, no chance of enhancement.
Because if the clouds were going that way, heading that way, and you make them rain here, super saturate and drain of it all this moisture, well then it's not going to make its way over there. And then you can point climate change. Oh, look how hot it is over here, climate change. Look how wet it is over here, climate change. So that cloud that was going that way now, don't go that way anymore. It super saturates here and then now. Within an hour this can be done. It can go from blue sky to pissing out the heavens in an hour. This ain't no fairy tale stuff. This is me telling you the truth. Alright, so basically what happens then is, if you starve this place and you take all the moisture and you make it rain here, somewhere else then that was going to get that rain, they don't get it now at all. They just get drier weather. So one part of the world can be super saturated, the other part is as dry as a bone.
However, what can be done is to increase snow production and rainfall when there are clouds to work with. In other words, in 2008, Beijing claimed that they made it rain early with cloud seeding to ensure blue skies with the Olympic opening ceremony. In contrast, the American Meteorological Society released a statement in 2010 saying there's still uncertainty whether current cloud seeding techniques actually work to achieve the desired changes in precipitation. According to the World Meteorological Organization, 52 countries have a weather modification program, and many of them continue to boost funding for such operations, all in an effort to perhaps one day control the weather.
Wilhelm Reich. Alright, Wilhelm Reich was a man and he was an inventor. And he tapped into an energy called argon. Now, he invented a few things, or he was looking into a few things, and one of the things he was looking into was a cloud machine. A machine for making clouds, and also the same machine could make clouds disappear. So I'm going to put a bit of a video in here in amongst all this video on geoengineering to give you an idea, because you need to get a grasp of different sides of the story to get a better understanding of what this is all about and how big it is and how long they've been able to affect the weather, right? And that's one of the reasons they took out Wilhelm Reich, right? They tried to discredit him at the end of the day. They said he was all about the sex revolution, you know? Nothing about argon now. And this energy field he was tapping into, they said that could cure the big C, right? And how he could make rain, how he could produce rain with this simple machine that he had. So I'm going to put it in the video here again for you to see.
I was a farmer back in '53. And our crops had suffered the worst drought in 40 years. And then we heard of a man called Wilhelm Reich, who claimed he could make rain using a machine he called the Cloudbuster. So, we wrote him a letter, asking for his help. The offer was simple: money for rain. Reich arrived with his son, Peter. He promised us rain within 24 hours. I remember asking him how it worked. He said kind of like a lightning rod, using an energy he called argon. I only found out later why the men from the government were watching him. If anything, I remember the air getting drier, but I didn't doubt him. Reich had a confidence that stuck to you. Everybody simply waited, passing time, hoping the strange machine would work. That machine sure did something. And that was the last I ever saw of Wilhelm Reich.
And understand this, they can, with these simple machines, you can produce clouds, you can make clouds appear and make it rain, and the same machine can also, you can aim at the clouds and make clouds dissipate and evaporate. That's providing that they're real clouds now, not some of the clouds that they talk about these days, you know, in school and all. For the last couple of years, they've pushed in about, I think, 10, 12, 14 new clouds in the top of the children, trying to tell the children, look, these clouds exist now. But as I said before, and I'll say it again, the only way you can get 14 new clouds in the atmosphere, or 10, 12 or 14 new clouds, is if you put 10, 12, 14 new pollutants. So this pollutant will produce this kind of a cloud, that pollutant will produce that kind of a cloud, the other pollutant will produce another type of cloud, and so on and so forth till you have 10, 12, 14 of them clouds. So you'll see clouds now they call horsetails, and you see them, they're all wispy in the sky. They're all wispy and stretched out, right? I call them demon's fingers because they're artificial. and it's a part of geoengineering, weather manipulation, weather control, right? And then they'll point at climate change, but when really they're manipulating the weather, right, and they're controlling the weather is what they've been doing for years, right? So watch the video and you'll see. Also know that with the HAARP installation, that they ionise the stratosphere. And with the heat, you can move the heat around, and we know that weather storms, they need heat to produce massive storms. So if you have a storm and you decide to pump a lot of heat in around it, well, all of a sudden, the magnitude of that storm goes up by 4-4-fold, right? So just know that these are the things they can do. Now, for years, we've been putting videos out, and the people like me, about geoengineering, weather manipulation, weather control, and how they're controlling the weather. And people said it was a conspiracy. You were called a conspiracy theorist, all right? And again, as I said, I was putting videos out in 2010 to terminate my channel for the stuff I'm talking about now again. But now they're admitting they cloud seed, as in they put clouds into a blue sky. They can make it rain. And it's as simple as if you got £1 million and your grapes need a sup of water, well, we can fly over and geoengineer the atmosphere and make it rain within an hour. You know, you can have a blue sky in Ireland, and within the space of an hour, they can have that blue sky turn grey and making it rain. And if there are real clouds there, you'll get what's known as supersaturation. They add it, they spray the sky, the molecules connect to the vapour in the atmosphere, and it comes down as known as supersaturation. That's why if you look into the sky, they're not doing it today, amazing. They're probably sick of doing it because it's been raining for the last couple of months. But wait and you see, keep notice of the sky, and you'll see some planes will go across and leave a little contrail behind it. That is when warm air meets cold air, it crystallises and it evaporates as the plane goes through the sky. Alright lads, I just said I'd point this out. If you look at that plane there now, that is leaving a contrail. You see? A contrail. It dissipates and evaporates behind the plane. As well, a chemical chemtrail will be put out of the back of the plane and it'll stay there and it'll go across the sky and intertwine with hundreds of more, if not thousands, and block out the whole sky. Turn your blue sky white. Now it's blue like that, but if they were to fly over a load of planes and start geoengineering, well then it'll be just gone. That's where chemtrails look now when you look at them. See like that? They stay and they spread out. But that's only a contrail. Watch it dissipating and evaporating in front of you. See? Right, so here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That's kind of like a jet engine. Warm air meets cold air, crystallises, dissipates, evaporates. It don't go across the whole sky and block out the whole sky. No, it doesn't. It does exactly what that's doing there. It's the same thing. And then you will see the geoengineering ones, the ones that go the whole way across the sky, but they don't dissipate and evaporate and change shapes. They stretch out, and then they'll put another one, and they'll all intertwine, stretch out, and within an hour, they can have the whole of Ireland gone from blue to grey and raining.
We're here in Santa Barbara County, home to one of the longest running cloud seeding operations in the country. We've got some ground-based cloud seeding equipment right here, and we're gonna get to hear all about how it works and see it in action. Let's check it out. Cloud seeding is the most common type of weather modification, and it has many different techniques and applications. Today, it's mostly used to increase rain and snowfall, reduce the size of hail.
They're going about, this geoengineering is a part of, stopping such big hail falling. When it's not true, because like for the last few years, hail has got out of control literally. The hail can fall there the size of tennis balls, So you see that on YouTube all the time, So how come they don't stop that hail? It reduces the size of the hail falling. Bullshit. You mean it maximises the size of the hail falling? That's more like it.
Traditionally, cloud seeding has been done from the air. So airplanes have had racks on them where these same flares are positioned on the airplane, and the airplane flies into the storm. So in order to reduce the cost to the client, we've been able to station these on the ground. Now we can do this in places where weather permits.
Behind a barbed wire fence designed to keep away curious cattle, the cloud seeding gear awaits the right kind of weather.
So these are referred to as AHOGs. That stands for Automated High Output Ground Seeding Systems. We've got three primary components of our equipment here. The first is the control module that you see behind me. Then we have our actual cloud seeding flares. The cameras for security. It also helps us observe weather conditions in real time and make sure that all of the equipment is operating correctly during a storm. Inside these canisters are the flares with the seeding agents. The canisters are used as spark arresters, so they prevent sparks from reaching the ground. So if we pull off the spark arrestor, you can see the flare inside. The ignition of the flares are controlled from the control module that's behind us. So the white triangle there is a cell service modem, and then the solar panel keeps us powered. Inside we have a battery and then a control board. So the control board interacts with the software. We're linked or synced with the software in Utah currently, and that allows us to fire or ignite any of the flares from that remote location.
Because of the lack of clouds and proper wind conditions, today is not a good day for cloud seeding at all. But Garrett and his team are going to light a flare for us anyway, so we can show you how it works. There's just one small problem. The battery in the control module died shortly before we arrived, but it's nothing a little jump start can't fix. After a little juice from Garrett's truck, it's time to set off the flare.
The primary seeding agent in this is silver iodide.
According to JSTOR, silver iodide is toxic and must be handled with care.
There's chemical properties that help attract water molecules to silver iodide.
Iodide is toxic and must be handled with care.
It's also structured molecularly similar to ice. So it helps generate or helps spawn the generation of ice buildup, and then that becomes a hailstone or a snowflake that falls here primarily as rain. So one flare like this has billions and billions of potential sites for that water to congregate around. We'll launch them in sequences. We watch the radar to see when bands of the highest concentration of liquid water are passing above us in the clouds. And we try to target those high concentration pockets in the storm systems. We'll launch between 3 and 20 flares for a typical storm. Once the flare is lit, it takes a little bit of time to carry up into the clouds, and once it's up at the proper elevation, it'll take about 20 minutes to instigate the rain or the snow process. So overall, you're probably looking at about 40 to 45 minutes. Before you're seeing the maximum result. And that's why we're stationed miles away from our target area. So we have very specific targets that drain directly into major water basins, and we time these events to correlate with rain above those intended targets. We time these events to correlate with rain above those intended targets.
And you'll also get these mad microbursts where you get heavy rain and wind comes in, lasts about 15-20 minutes and it's gone again. So this is what happens when you mess around with the weather. Not to mention, you see if a fire comes through, it'll burn all around it, alright? If a fire came through here, it would burn all around it, and within a half an hour of that fire going through, I can get out and start rebuilding. But when water comes in, their weapon of choice, rain, well, that'll saturate the land. It could be months, it could be years before you get back to the land again, okay? Think of it like New Orleans, you know, washed out of it. We won't drain the land, we might one day, and then we'll charge people full whack for that land. So they can go into prime land, saturate it, make the people push out, and in 10 years, 20 years, whatever suits them, drain the land, sell it for top dollar. Just keep this kind of stuff in mind. There's a known fact, and it's a saying, and a known saying, and a true saying, he who controls the weather will control the world. Because if you have a disagreement with any country, you might say, look, I have a disagreement with London. I want that place wiped out. Well, you send in 10 hurricanes straight through the whole place, with winds up to 200 kilometres an hour constant for the day. And then there's nothing in that place left. Nothing. And you can say that was an act of God. That was nothing to do with us. You see, not to mention the climate change hoax that comes with it, to tax you, to make you get out of your car, to put you into an electric car, and of course artificial AI intelligence overseeing the whole system.
And in terms of Internet of Things, there's research prototypes now, which I assume are being used by intelligence agencies, of very small electronic circuits that you can just put in paper or put and paint or on the walls. That are powered by the GSM stations, and they operate as the GSM radio wave passes through them. It gives them enough power for a very small amount of time to do things.
You've got to remember, these metal particulates are no bigger than the fog in front of you, right? You'd be breathing them in and you wouldn't even know. You're literally hooked up to 5G or to AI with all the metal particulates inside you, making you like a living antennae.
So obviously that tendency is going to continue. It's not like the Internet of Things. It's if you like, intelligent evil dust.
Now, I'm not saying that all the weather is constantly manipulated all the time, because sometimes they don't need to. The natural weather suits them. But when they want to manipulate it, when they want to, they could make this fog dissipate in 2 minutes if they wanted, and in half an hour all fog could be gone. But if they go above the fog, let's say at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they decide to fly 1 or 2 jets across Ireland and geoengineer the atmosphere, well then the fog stays there and it'll turn to drizzle. Now, I'm not saying that every foggy day where the fog prolongs is something to do with them, but they can do that also. Just keep that in mind. They can manipulate all aspects of the weather.
John Coleman is the founder of the Weather Channel. He was also the first weatherman ever on Good Morning America, and he is currently weatherman at KUSI News in San Diego.
Well, I've been listening to all the global warming talk for a long time and posting material about global warming on our website. But finally, the crescendo of global warming myth, nonsense, exploded in my head, and I had to write a real rant. Of global warming myth, nonsense exploded in my head, and I had to write a real rant.
Does cloud seeding have a negative effects? Cloud seeding can theoretically go well, but there is always a chance of unintended adverse consequences. Releasing these chemicals into the atmosphere can contaminate the water supplies below and affect humans and the animals, right? Now that's just some of what cloud seeding can do, right, when they're cloud seeding. And they can manipulate, and they do manipulate all this, and then they call it climate change. For you to pay up and to brainwash you and your children. It's physics, it's the natural law, it has no other choice. Water and water alone, when it's in the sky, will dissipate, evaporate, it'll rain down, it'll go back up, it'll constantly be dissipating, evaporating, and changing shapes. That's just a natural law of physics with clouds on Earth. But their clouds they've introduced, well, they can sit there for hours and hours and intertwine and slowly but surely block out your blue sky. And then before you know it, the lovely blue sky you looked out at there at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock this morning, it's grey and raining outside now. And of course you're brainwashed in, of course, by the TV and by the radio, constantly saying climate change, and then they pump it into your children's head, and then the lie is embedded in their mind, and they grow up with the lie, and they can't see outside the lie. So it's up to you to listen to me, do some research, and wake up and know the truth for the sake of your own fellow Irishman, woman and child. What do you make of that, John? Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh, yes.
A fair assessment if you ask me. So on we go.